Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming today. My name is Seth Koslow. I'm the ranking member on the Public Safety Committee in Nassau County. We're here today with my colleagues in government on the Democratic Caucus. I want to thank Legislator DeRiggi-Whiton, Legislator Deborah Muley, Legislator Scott Davis, Legislator Carrie Salages, and Legislator Arnie Drucker for joining me here today. We're also joined by Civil Rights Attorney Josh Kellner from the law firm Kellner & Kellner, and Carrie Dunn from Free and Fair Litigation Group, which is a nonprofit legal services organization that is working tirelessly around the country to counter the rising threat of authoritarianism in America through legal challenges that safeguard our democracy and constitutional rights. Now, why are we here today? We're here today because Nassau County is wasting taxpayer dollars on a militia to protect us from problems we don't have. We're spending taxpayer dollars to arm citizens under the provision that we might need their assistance. This is political theater from County Executive Bruce Blakeman. It's not about public safety. He's not concerned about our safety and what's going to happen to us. He's concerned about getting attention. But a bigger problem with this is there's no transparency. We don't know what's happening, who's involved, what type of training they're getting, and who's paying for this. There are three important things that law enforcement has to have for a community: training, discipline, and accountability. This militia lacks all three. But beyond that, we have the Nassau County Police Department, which is one of, if not the best police department in the country. We know they are well trained. We know they are trained above state standards. And yet, Bruce Blakeman thinks we need a militia that answers to him and only him. Why would we need that? There is no possible reason that we need armed civilians to assist police officers doing their jobs. But terrifyingly, Bruce Blakeman said the other day he will use this militia to stop protests when he decides it's an emergency. He is going to decide when to stop protests by using these armed civilians that are untrained when he decides it's necessary. It's clear that this is not about community protection. It's about political control. And that's what he's using them for. It's dangerous, it's illegal, and it affects all of us. Community members, police officers, everyone in our county is affected by this illegal militia. We're not in the Wild West, and even though Blakeman thinks he's a sheriff, he can't just deputize people and give them the right to arrest people and use lethal force. That's why we filed this suit against Bruce Blakeman to stop this from happening and to force the court to give us more information that Bruce Blakeman refuses to share with us. I'd now like to call upon DeRiggi-Whiton to speak more about what's important when it comes to public safety in the community.
Good morning. I am DeRiggi-Whiton, and I'm the minority leader for Nassau County Legislature. Nassau County residents trust our police. It's because they are highly trained professionals. Law enforcement is not something you can learn in a quick study, which is what these deputies, from what we've been able to determine, were given. We don't need an armed militia. They are not accountable. There's a question of who would be liable should something go wrong. It's probably going to be the county. And one last thing I want to say, the residents here, again, we trust the police. We are proud of the fact that we are one of the safest counties in the nation. The police that I have spoken with, from not only Nassau County Police, but other police, do not like this idea. They're afraid that this is a formula for disaster, either in identification or training or God knows what happens in an emergency. The last thing they need is an armed civilian coming to the rescue when the police are the ones that should really maintain the control of those situations. Again, thank you for coming, and it's my pleasure to introduce Legislator DeRiggi-Whiton.
Good morning. As our minority leader said, I'm Deborah Muley, and I am one of the named litigants in this action. I woke up this morning and read the paper and saw that Bruce Blakeman called me a disgrace, me and Scott, my fellow litigant. You know what? I think what's a disgrace is that we even have to be here to do this. And let's talk a little bit about transparency. So, back in April, letters were sent to the county executive asking for more information from us, the elected officials. No response. In May, there was a FOIL request by us. No response. We sent an appeal in June. No response. That is clearly illegal. Why are we hiding things? What is it that we can't know? And just so that you know, we want to know who exactly is being recruited, exactly what kind of training are they receiving, and we cannot allow government-sanctioned armed civilian groups to become the norm in Nassau County or anywhere else in the country. And just one final thing, I want to say that I lived through Sandy, and Sandy was one of the main reasons for making this armed militia, that, well, we have to safeguard things. Well, I live in Freeport, I lived through it. Yeah, we needed extra help, but we had the National Guard, highly trained people, professionals, who safeguarded our property and our lives. We do not need a militia. Thank you. And next one, please.
Good morning, I'm Scott Davis. I'm the second named plaintiff in this action. And I wanted to bring a little context to the reason that we're doing this today. According to U.S. News and World Report 2024, the latest report, you are now in the safest county in the United States of America. And this county has been designated the safest county in the United States of America for the last several years. And to give further context to that, you have to understand that in the United States, there are over 3,100 counties, and we are the safest. To our west, in Queens County, they are the 20th safest county. To our east, Suffolk County, the 22nd safest county in the United States of America. So in this region, we are absolutely safe. The Special Militia Program, the deputies, is a solution looking for a problem that doesn't exist. There is no need for another layer of protection. There's no evidence, statistically, data-wise, or anecdotally, that there is any issue regarding responsiveness by our police department. We have 2,500 very well trained and vetted professional police officers who respond to and have responded to any emergency situation in five-star manner that we've had. That would include recent demonstrations with George Floyd, where the police commissioner will tell you there wasn't a single arrest, not one. We also have over 21 village and city police departments within Nassau County to supplement, if we needed to, any emergency situation with the Nassau County Police. And as the legislator Millay said, we also have, if necessary, we have the National Guard. So, what do all of these law enforcement agencies have in common? They're professional. They're well trained. They've gone through the academy. There are protocols. There's a chain of command. there are clear guidelines, and more importantly than anything else, there's accountability. These special deputies, they are controlled solely by and at the discretion of the county executive. A county executive who has no law enforcement training. There's no oversight, there's no accountability, there are no clear guidelines. We don't know who is armed, when and where and how they'll be deployed, and the only person who could deploy them is the county executive. There's also a very strong potential that when you put deputized citizens into dire situations and they aren't adequately trained, that there are liability issues, and those liability concerns will be borne on the back of all the residents and taxpayers in Nassau County. There are no checks and balances in this program. That's the essence of what good government is for. Special deputies, there is no need for them. This is a dangerous idea, and it has no good place in a democracy, I think.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. I think it is more than a coincidence that we are gathered here today to initiate this lawsuit on what would have been Trayvon Martin's 30th birthday. As you recall, Trayvon Martin died in Florida, Sanford, at the hands of an untrained, armed, wannabe police officer who didn't have the right to put his hands and kill that young black man who was wearing a hoodie. We cannot afford, Nassau County, a situation in which that happens here, in which an untrained, armed militiaman harms a young person just because he was wearing a hood. We cannot afford that. We've worked very hard to establish the safety that we have as a county of its size, the Nassau County Police Department and our community. We cannot afford any untrained actors to disrupt the peace that we have established as a community. This is an example of our county executive overreaching, just like we see being played out on national politics, in which the president is overreaching his power. We must do what we can as citizens to preserve democracy and to have control, and to have a true balance of powers. We cannot allow the county executive to exceed his powers in this respect. This would be very harmful and dangerous for Nassau County. So I want to thank my colleagues for initiating this lawsuit. This is very brave of them. We must do what is right. But again, happy birthday, Trayvon Martin.
Good morning. I'm Deputy Minority Leader Arnie Drucker. We're here this morning to amplify the crucial message we have on behalf of all of Nassau County residents. And I think you've heard this morning the common thread here is about accountability. And it's both to me and all of us, it's frightening and infuriating to see how far the county executive intends to go here. And we all see what's going on in our national politics as well. In 3 weeks' time, we're seeing some very scary things going on. It's our job. We want to stop it. We have to stop it. What we are seeing at the hands here of County Executive Whitman is not happening, though, in isolation, which in and of itself, again, is frightening, because across the country, Republican-led counties and states are normalizing the presence of armed vigilantes in our communities by stoking the flames of fear of an imaginary threat to our democracy. We cannot let our local officials empower government-sanctioned armed civilian groups at the behest of this county's administration to further this misguided and dangerous path. If we do not stop this here, it will continue to spread. It is a dire situation now, and I wish we didn't have to bring this lawsuit. But these are the things that we have to do to counter the erosion that is happening here in our country, in our community. Thank you.
Do you have any questions? Okay, Josh, go ahead.
Good morning. I'm Josh Kellner. I'm one of the lawyers representing the plaintiffs in this case. The law on this is clear. The county executive does not have the authority to raise a private militia made up of thinly trained private citizens. County Law 655 allows the county executive to draw on law enforcement resources from surrounding municipalities in times of a true and declared emergency. It doesn't allow the government to call up private citizens and hand them badges. New York law tightly restricts who is allowed to wield force and make arrests on behalf of the government, and the county executive has exceeded his authority here. The county executive also has sought to shroud this program in secrecy in violation of the Freedom of Information law. The plaintiffs in this case have made legitimate requests for public documents. The public has a right to know what the county is doing on its behalf, and in failing to turn over records of training, of who is in the program, of what guidelines govern it, the county has violated the Freedom of Information law, and we are very confident in our likelihood of prevailing in this lawsuit. I'd now like to introduce my colleague, Carrie Dunn, who is the other attorney in this case.
Thank you. As you heard, Free and Fair Litigation Group is a nonprofit, and we lead high-impact litigation to stop the advance of authoritarianism in the United States. We monitor laws and executive actions across the country. We identify threats to our democracy, and we bring lawsuits to defeat those threats. And that's what brings us here today. Yes, County Executive Blakeman's new private militia endangers public safety here in Nassau, but it also threatens the health of our democracy nationwide. This is an authoritarian power grab in the heart of suburbia, and if it's left unanswered, it's a model for the abuse of executive power everywhere in America, including in our nation's capital. We can't normalize this in our nation of laws. We can't have hand-picked groups of armed vigilantes operating at the beck and call of an unchecked executive. We're honored to work with the caucus to protect the rule of law here. Thank you for your time.
So, just to close out, we're here today to send a message. We're here today to send a message that we're not going to stand by and let Bruce Blakeman scare the community into believing we have a problem or a need, when in reality, we need more law enforcement officers. We need more detectives, and that's why the Democratic caucus put forth proposals to get more police officers on our streets, to increase the number of detectives we have to solve the crimes we're facing. But instead, we're forced to file this lawsuit because Bruce Blakeman thinks a militia is more important than real trained law enforcement. We're not going to stop fighting. We're not going to stop fighting this issue because this is what's important to our community members, and that's our job as legislators. I'm going to open the floor up to questions now, and once we're done, I know we're all cold, but we'll be available for one-on-ones as well if necessary. Any questions?
Yes. Yesterday, we had a press about these ICE agent detectives. Are you concerned that this militia is going to be part of those, the ICE agents, and be with them and be called because they'll say it's an emergency?
Look, I know he said it's not going to be a part of it, but let's look at who we're dealing with. He loves to play dress up, wearing his army fatigues and police jackets. So is it really out of the realm of possibility that he would try and use his own personal militia to enforce immigration laws and work with ICE because he thinks he's doing the right thing? I don't believe when he says he won't use them. I'm concerned he will activate them and declare an emergency where an emergency doesn't exist, and that's what we're worried about.
Is that why you're filing this suit, or this suit was planned well before that anyway, or is it just that you anticipated that this was down the line?
We had planned on filing this lawsuit because it was illegal, but we have been getting feedback from the community that they are concerned about this as well, and it's actually brought the militia back into light because people are concerned about that.
About immigration,
about the use of militia with ICE and for immigration raids and whatnot. But the basis for this lawsuit is simply because it's on its face illegal, as the lawyers informed you, and that's why we brought the lawsuit.
What gives you the indication that you feel he could use this militia with those detectives that you promised?
He's already said he can use the militia for protests or for anything he deems to be an emergency. We don't know what he wants to do. We don't know what they're trained to handle because he hasn't told us. And that's the other reason we brought the lawsuit, to find out what's going on here. So it's a two-pronged approach in the lawsuit because it's illegal and because he's not responding to our request for information.
But his announcement yesterday concerned me.
Yes. Other questions? All right.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.